Today, the race is nearly 50 years old. The rivers are much older, but the challenge for the canoeists is, as always, a journey of discovery, if you like. First navigated by Mariani and Foley in the last century. But the race's beginnings were to come much later, when a young man back from the Second World War made the journey alone.
The first journey was extremely difficult. The canoe was very heavy, must have been in the region of 200 pounds. I had my kit in 5-gallon paint tins, and I had to line the canoe down the rapids, and in some places had to carry it. First of all getting the tins out and then carrying it. And of course it meant sleeping out on the banks at night. But it was a very weary and long journey. Yet nevertheless it brought me into contact with the elements, with the great storms that you get in the valley, and the lightning striking the trances. And it was in many ways the first wilderness experience that I had.
On completion, Player issued a challenge in the press. Ernie Pierce replied, and the following year, participants launched their canoes at Alexandra Park in Pietermaritzburg. Most of them in homemade boats that were soon in pieces. Of the 8, only Player finished the race. The following year, Player teamed up with Schmidt. They were the only 2 to complete the race. But good publicity had catapulted canoeing into the minds of the young and adventurous, and the Natal Canoe Club foundations had been solidly laid.
Now we used to paddle at night. Oh, it's dangerous. You know, you hear a rapid and you didn't know where it was. You just hear it roar. It's totally different at night time. You can get caught against rocks you can't see. But we had a sort of a counter for that. We had these Valhalla lots on the ship. And they were quite successful. But that had an added problem. Our enemies, as we called them in those days, were behind us, and they could see this light come on, so they knew we were around. So we had to try and find some counters for that.
Racing tactics were, to say the least, somewhat unorthodox.
2 Transvaalers that caught up with us, and they stuck to Ian and I like glue. Surprisingly, Ian decided, he said, well, look, let's camp. And this was 5:30 in the afternoon, and I was flabbergasted. I said to him, no ways. He said, make the fire, put the tea on, everything. And they were across the river to us. And we put our canoes out of sight of the fire. And after an hour, and when it was really dark, Ian whispered to me, he said, let's go. I said, go where? He says, we're going. So we left the little fire going, grabbed our canoes, and we got onto a pathway that he knew, and we were off like a shot. The Transvaalers told us later, the next morning they'd woke up 4 o'clock and said, we mustn't miss these guys, they're going to leave early. When they woke up, we were gone.
The following year, 1953, the race was fiercely contested by 2 rival teams, Player and Schmidt versus Ernie Pierce and Bob Templeton. The 2 teams agreed to draw. The toughest canoe race in the world had begun.
27.5 hours after leaving Maritzburg, Ernie Pierce and Bob Templeton arrive in the Umgeni Lagoon, winners of the annual Maritzburg to Durban canoe race. They did so well that few people were on hand to applaud their magnificent effort. They had cut 9.25 hours off the previous record for the hazardous 110-mile journey down the Dusi and Umgeni rivers. With only 1 hour's sleep on the way, they arrived tired but triumphant, 2 hours ahead of their nearest rivals. The final preparations over, the first batch take to the water, the start of a really grueling 110 miles. Whether in single canoes or double, the teams are paired off in couples. There were 2 night stops, both most welcome after traveling through wild country with really tough going. On the third morning, the first men home reached the Umgeni River mouth. They were Bob Templeton and Ernie Pierce, who won last year in record time.
These were the days when anyone that mattered wore a leopard skin hat, a piece of Dusi garb with interesting origins.
So we were sitting in the Vic Gray's lounge, and we looked around and there was a leopard skin. It was a genuine one too. A bit tattered, but not too bad. It was on the floor, so we were talking to our Vic and his wife, and we said to Vic, what about it? So he said, well, he said, I don't know if my wife will agree. And Vic Gray went out to make tea, and we quickly had a look at it. So one of the chaps said, oh, let me cut a piece, man. So we said, no, don't be sure, you can't do that. So I said, no, man. He said, leave it, I'll fix it up. And now we said goodbye to our Vic, you know, here this bloke said, yeah, look at it. And here was the lever's going to have been. So he said, yeah, you take it. So I took it, put it on the hats, and then it became the fashion. We're getting more and more qualifiers, and our Vic's mat was getting smaller and smaller. So his wife he never noticed it at all.
2, 1, and the flag drops, and they go. Now they're each carrying a canoe by themselves.
A knowledge of the river kept local boys a step ahead of outside competitors who are now coming in from all parts of the country.
The canoes get into the river almost in a bunch and are pressed together like so much driftwood. But they're down, they're speeding, and the applause of the crowd you can hear in the background as they pass under the bridge.
These were the days of ham radio, and strictly no women in the valley after sunset. An all-men's affair now raced over 3 days.
If you prepare yourself for the race, it takes at least 4 months, and a man virtually becomes a social outcast, especially over the Christmas season.
We spend quite a lot of time down the river, poring over maps and trying to improve the course and looking at rapids.
A fiberglass culture catapulted the sport into the modern age.
The word Dusi means the river that pushes, and it can very well do this when it has water. Putting it very crudely, it takes guts to go in for a thing like this. I'm sure that we are actually helping to build a South Africa we all want. Irrespective of Afrikaans and English-speaking people, we have a wonderful time down this river, and the menace of duck sailors will not ever creep into canoeing because it's just too hard for us.
Such was the birth of the original Dusi rat.
Only 7 of the 44 starters completed the course at all, which shows what a really meritorious effort Derek Antrobus and Robert Goldie put up.
The annual Pietermaritzburg to Durban Canoe Marathon get off to an early start. There's around 80 miles of tough traveling ahead of them. This season there's been rain aplenty, and that means fast-moving water, just the kind enthusiasts like. Well, I hope they like it, so some of them are sure seeing enough of it. The Umgeni Valley, covered in clouds, Jimmy Potgieter and Clive Huff, the overnight leaders, are off to an early start, while less fortunate competitors battle to repair their frail craft, a chore which may only be performed when the race is actually in progress. For Potgieter and Huff, who have broken the record for the event by almost half an hour, it's congratulations and enjoy your rest. Distance, it's a tough slog through bush, over rocks and up steep hills. But at the finishing point in Durban, the crowd give Willem von Wietz and his brother Rulof a big hand. The wary winners of 1969.
With
water in the Dusi River low, a lot of portage is necessary, with some competitors looking as if they're trying to break the speed limit.
Eerste, bij die eerste stopplek op die route, is Andre Harden.
Into the rapids again, perhaps searching for a sort of deliverance. Graham Pope Ellis and Eric Clark win the doubles for the third time, and Andre Harden the singles for a second time.
It was the likes of Pope Ellis, seen here with partner Peter Peacock, that took canoeing into a new era. There were others too, like singles champion, the legendary Andre Hardwin. This is Tim Biggs and Robbie Stewart coming in for a 70s win. The Dusi had become legendary, and in 1981 began admitting women. Low river conditions in the early 80s led to an historical struggle between two individuals, Graham Pope Ellis and Danny Biggs. Arguably, it was Pope Ellis's ability to pace himself, helped by his intimate knowledge of the river, that put him in a class of his own. The Dusi King was to dominate the race for another decade.
Graham Pope Ellis maakt geschiedenis. Voor de eerste keer in 30 jaar binnen enkel kanoe die Dusi. Moedige Danny Biggs is tweede. Van hom gaan ons nog baie hoor in die Comrades en op die Dusi.
But no one rests on their laurels in this event. Competition looms. Particularly amongst the local guides, who have always dominated the race. The Biggs family from Ikopo grew up on the Umkomaas River and had the right foundation to take on Dusi royalty.
Soos lankal deur kenners voorspel, sal die Biggs broers onoorwinnelik wees wanneer hulle die dag saamspan. Die Biggs broers wen hierdie marathon die eerste keer in 'n baie goeie tyd van 8 uur 43 minute 22 seconden.
But success in the Dusi is bittersweet. Danny never got to dethrone the Pope on his own.
When I decided that I really wanted to win the Dusi and put my whole mind and heart into it, I was paddling with Eric Clark at that stage, and Eric and I actually spent quite some time in areas where the river changed from time to time, particularly where the sandbanks changed, and the confluence area where the Umgeni and Dusi join. We got into the river there on one occasion and swam the various channels to get the feel of the current, to really become part of this whole event. You know, you get to know the river so well that it's actually part of your backyard.
Graham's intimate knowledge of the rivers is no secret, something he willingly shares.
If the river's up a little bit, and there's not that many rocks showing by the overhanging rock, you can take your chances and paddle on through here. You must shoot this rapid here on the right.
His feelings for the valley go beyond the rapids he knows so well.
Today, there's no grass. It's just all your invader weeds, your lantana, and now we have man himself coming in and mining this rock, and he's taken out huge areas of rock and defaced this beautiful valley that we once had, particularly because the area where they are mining was once lined with huge wild figs.
The true wilderness experience is over. Yet, still amongst the deep valleys, one has a sense of remoteness. Mumba Gorge remains untamed, known only to canoeists like Dave Biggs and Roger Collison, who tackled such wild stretches in high water years. One of the prerequisites to winning the race remains living in its backyard.
We started the Dusi with Graham, Graham being virtually a neighbour of ours, just living just up the road, and when he won his first Dusi, I think in 1972, so he was the hero in the neighbourhood. And I remember the standard 2, standard 3, Graham Popelis was our hero, and I wanted to do the Dusi. I was desperate to do the Dusi.
As Edmonds approaches the Burma Road takeoff, Pope Ellis comes into sight. The gap is barely 2 minutes. Pope Ellis knows that time can be gained or lost. It's almost... When he reaches the top of Burma Road, John Edmonds is close to exhaustion. Pope Ellis shows the strain his body is taking. Wenker and Fowles are the first double at the top of Burma, John Edmonds reaches Blue Lagoon. His total time, 10 hours, 26 minutes, 38 seconds. He is led from start to finish, sometimes by as little as 25 seconds, to become the new Dusi king.
The Edmonds family was fast writing its name in the history books, but not without fierce competition from guys who'd been around for quite some time now.
I wasted a little bit of time there, not going directly to my old path. Graham went up and my seconds ran up the path that Graham had gone, and I thought rather than risk following a path, Graham up a path I didn't know, I'd just go the old way, even if I thought he might have a faster path, but it wasn't worth taking that risk.
Burma Road is the most notorious of the Dusi portages. Named by the veterans who pioneered the Dusi, nowhere on the river does the body take as much strain. Graham now has a lead of 2 minutes and 8 seconds. Paddling 120 kilometers, less than 100 meters separates them at the end.
He was just too fit for me. I'd come at him and I'd close the story to about 20 and I'd drop back to 30 and come back and drop back, and I just blowing up and getting back again and blowing up and getting back. Yeah, I just couldn't close that final gap.
So with the Finnish banner in sight, that's all there is in it. Graham Popelis wins the Dusi crown for the 13th time by the slimmest of margins, only 7 seconds.
The challenge amongst competitors is legendary. But this is a race which has to cater for climatic extremes. Imson Dusi and Mngeni rivers are wild cards in this Africa, something which the Pope and his most famous partner, double international Tim Cornish, have learnt to accept.
So low. You take 20 or 30 strokes and you have to climb out and take 3 or 4 strides to get back into the main stream again. You just get into the main little channel and the channel runs out onto a sandbank again. So you're getting in and out of your boat, and that really saps it out of you. And you can't get a full stroke with your paddle.